All right. So after you've completely researched your genre, we're going to move on to the next step, which is step 2, how to plot your story so writing is easy. I just got so excited because I love talking about plotting. I don't know why I'm so nerdy about this stuff, but it makes me so excited. I love organizing ideas. So maybe that's why I love this part. But step 2, how to plot your story so writing is easy. So a lot of people think I have an idea, I'll write and see where the story takes me. I'm just going to go with the flow. You can definitely do this. However, I think writing is going to be a lot easier if you can plot your story first and then start writing. If you want to start writing your story and just write, that's great. Some authors actually do this and that works for them. But I would challenge you to write your story and then go back, plot it out to make sure you're hitting all of those key elements, because I do believe that every really great story is hitting at least 7 main elements, which is pointing out who the character is, what their problem is, who is the guide that they meet that helps them to what's the plan that they give them to avoid a certain failure and to also give them a life of success. So there's some steps that you need to kind of hit. Doesn't necessarily have to be in any kind of order, but you do need to hit those points so that way the story is well rounded, so that the reader feels like the story is complete. Okay. So if you have a lot of ideas, and especially after you've done some research, you have a lot of ideas for your book, I want you to brain dump all of your ideas down. It can just be chaotic mess on a piece of paper, or you can organize them into different categories: inform, entertain, solve a problem, inspire. If you are someone like me where I just keep getting ideas all the time, I suggest you sit here for a minute and keep your ideas down on paper, organize them, and over time, recognize the ideas that keep repeating. And if you see an idea that keeps repeating, that's probably the idea that you should go with, because you're just drawn to it naturally. All right, so now you're going to pick one idea. And if you want to talk to someone about it, you should do it. I pick someone that you trust that's not going to like turn around and steal your idea or whatever, but pick someone that you trust that you can talk to about this idea fully and then see what they have to say. It's just sometimes good to talk about it so you can work through your own thoughts and connect the dots in your own mind. All right, so now what I want you to do is, after you pick one idea, you're sure that that's the idea you want to write. This is the book I want to write right now. Don't worry if you have more ideas. You can work on those books later. Don't think about them. You're going to focus now on one book idea. Now you're going to take that book idea and you're going to write one sentence describing your book. And you might need to rewrite this over and over again. That's totally fine, but do not move on until you have one solid sentence of your book idea. Okay, so after you have that, now you're going to fill in the brackets that I'm going to show you right here. This is from Michelle Schusterman. Outlining Your Book Fast is the title of her YouTube video that I found this. It's fantastic, which is why I'm including it in here. So once you have your one sentence describing your book, you're going to expand on that idea and fill in the brackets here. So it says character was status quo until inciting incident happens, and here's how that affects the main character's life. Now, that character must goal despite the conflict or else the consequence. This kind of just branches it out, makes it a little bit thicker. This applies to not just fiction novels. It applies also to memoirs. It also applies to picture books. This is great for any kind of genre, because even if you are writing a memoir, and yes, it's based off of your life, you still want to make sure the story is compelling, and you want to make sure there is a character who was in this certain kind of situation, who did have something that started kind of a snowball effect in their life. You want to make sure you're hitting those points in some way in your story. So it might not be in a normal plot structure because it's a memoir and it's following the events of your life. That's really fine, but you want to make sure you are hitting those points in some way. So after you've filled in those brackets, you're going to move on to write a 5-sentence paragraph. So again, we're expanding it a little bit more. And this is something that you can follow, a formula that Michelle Schusterman also included. It's 1, the setup; 2, end of act 1; 3, midpoint twist; 4, end of act 2 into act 3; and 5, climax and end. This is following the 3-act structure. If you don't know what that is, and if that's super overwhelming to you and you're like, I don't know anything, or like, what is act 2 or 3, or, a midpoint twist? What is that? I gave you some questions that can guide you through writing a 5-sentence paragraph. So who is the character? Where are they from? Inciting incident. How does the plan completely change? What is the lowest point for that character? What's the climax? And how does it end? Those are kind of generalized questions you can follow. If you don't like that, you can also write one sentence for every single plot point of the plot structure of your choice. Let's move on to what the plot structures are. So again, we're wanting to expand this a little bit more. I recommend writing each sentence on a note card. So that way you can like lay it out on the wall, you can lay it out on the floor around you. And this is just a very hands-on visual way. If you're a visual learner like I am, this is really helpful. So you're going to write one sentence for each plot point of the plot structure of your choice. Here's some examples. The 3-act structure, like I've mentioned, the hero's journey, 7-point story structure, save the cat, and the basic one, which is the Freytag's pyramid, which is what you've learned in high school. And there's a lot more than that. These are the most popular ones. So pick the plot structure that makes the most sense for you. Make sure you understand it and then go with it. Use that for your story. And then once you've filled out all your note cards for every single point of your plot structure, you can then get even more creative and write more ideas on note cards and fill in those note cards in between those plot points. So we're thickening this story by adding more ideas to it. And then make sure everything flows obviously naturally, that makes sense. And just make sure all of those ideas are thickening this plot this outline or skeletal outline that you have. You're just kind of adding a little bit more meat to the story. All right, so now we get to outline. So you have a whole bunch of note cards around you or on the wall, pasted somewhere, however you want to do it. Now you can get to outlining. So you can type all of your note cards up on a Word document, on a Google document, wherever you want to type it up, you can type it out. Make sure you save it. And once you've done that, you can use this graph system that I love. And it just helps for, again, someone who's visual, helps you to plan out the character arcs, the themes of your stories, the subplots that are happening, making sure you're hitting all the settings and all of that stuff. It just helps to kind of see everything at once and to make sure that there's no gaping holes in your story. So once you have this graph and everything's planned out, that there's no gaping holes, you're going to be able to move on to the next step. But I want to make sure that you have your goals in mind as you are plotting out your story. And these are questions that you've answered in the research genre about other people's books. But now it's your turn. It's your turn to answer these questions about your book and your story. Again, answering these questions, knowing the answers to them is going to help you stay focused as you're writing your story. Knowing why you're writing it, what you're wanting to include, who it's for is just going to help you. It's just helping you set your book up for success. All right, here's some resources. If you want to plot your story and you want to use an online source, you can use Campfire. This is just really, really cool resource online that helps you visually plot everything out. You can use mystory.today. You can use Miro. You can use Readsy, Dabble Writer. Those are all free, by the way. All of them have a free option. I love Word Hippo. So in the middle of my writing, I'll just pull up this tab. I have it bookmarked on my tab, and it's a Word Hippo. It's kind of a thesaurus, but if you put in a word, it's going to bring up different categories of different ways that word can be used and different like meanings. And it'll give you a whole bunch of different alternatives that you can use in that word. So if you're like me and you're writing your draft and you're using the same word over and over again, I like to pull that up and kind of skim through all those different words that it's throwing up there and use an alternative to make just my writing a little bit better. And then if you're wanting to have some accountability in plotting and writing, you can come join our Writing Accountability Facebook group, and I include that link below. So here's some great books on writing itself if you want to enhance your craft of writing. Story Genius by Lisa Crone is fantastic. Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hayes. Love this. If you're writing a romance, I think it's wonderful. 7-Figure Fiction by T. Taylor. If you're writing a fantasy fiction kind of story, this is great. I love this one as well. Those are very short reads. The 7-Figure Fiction and Romancing the Beat, very short. And then the Emotion Thesaurus by Becca and Angela. It's just like it says, an emotion thesaurus. So if you look up a word, it's going to give you a whole bunch of alternatives, some physical reactions people might have, and why. It's just really detailed and wonderful to use if you are needing that insight. So great. So check that out. All right, so plotting your story should take you a month or more, depending, on your ideas and how long it takes for you to feel like you have a solid idea underway. You do not have to pay any money for this step of the process. If you want some worksheets and resources that I've created, the links will be included below. I have the Ultimate Author Book Planner, which helps you from idea all the way to editing, outline your story graph spreadsheet, how to thoroughly outline your story fast, the guide, plot structure bundle with just a whole bunch of plot structures in there, and then a character development worksheet. Worksheets, actually, it's a big, thick thing that you can use to really get deeper characters. So that way you can make sure their motivation is there and they can drive the story forward. All right. Are there any questions about plotting your story? I know this one is huge and there's a lot of steps in this one, but I hope that by breaking it down like that, it's just going to get you to a very clear place that's going to make writing so much easier. All right, doesn't look like anybody has questions. I'm going to move on. Fantastic. So the next step is step 3, which is how to create a positive writing experience with a hectic schedule.